Parkersburg on Facebook Live and on YouTube. We are here today with Dr. Chris Gilmer to talk about the strategic plan for WVU Parkersburg. Dr. Gilmer.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Good evening, everybody. As you can see, I'm not coming from you from my messy desk in my office today, as you're used to seeing in the background. I am being brave and trying to do this from home when Dr. Jackson or others are not close enough to run across the hall if I mess up something. So I'm going to try not to touch anything, and we will hope for the best. I see the lighting is better in my office, and you may hear a little bit of poodle conversation in the background this evening, which I can't control for. But anyway, I appreciate you being with me. We did this yesterday, and we're doing it again today. I wanted to do it once during the day and once at night. I know there won't ever be a time that's convenient for everybody, but I wanted to do the best I could to make a couple of options so that hopefully one of them would be a little bit more convenient. Of course, it didn't occur to me that our folks would, it always occurs to me that they'll be cleverer than I am. I noticed they recorded me yesterday and they already have it on the website today. So one could make a case that we didn't need to do this again, that we could watch it on the website. But they may have this one on again tomorrow, and I wanted to be with you in real time anyway. I'm sorry that we can't be in a room together. You know, that's just about my favorite thing to do. But I do believe there will be a time again when we can be in a room together. That gives us all something to look forward to. If any of my English professor colleagues are on the meeting tonight, they'll remember the introduction to Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities when he wrote, "It is the best of times, it is the worst of times." During COVID-19, it's pretty hard for us to see anything except the worst of times. Many people have paid an ultimate price for the virus. Many families have suffered because of that. Lots of people have lost small businesses. Students have had a difficulty in continuing their education. Faculty and staff have had to change the way that we do everything. It has not been good times. And I don't want to indicate in any way anything other than that. But I will say to you that it has been the best of times in a couple of ways. And one of them is that if we ever needed to realize what resilient people we are, what has happened to us over the last 6 months should surely have convinced us how resilient we are. Also, if we ever needed to have it pointed out to us what good people we live among, then I think we've had that pointed out to us in some very real ways. I've watched this community come together to support each other and lift each other up many times before, but never more than I have watched that during the pandemic. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate it and how much I look forward to life on the other side. Tonight is to talk a little bit about the strategic plan. I'm going to frame it a little bit for you, and then I'm going to see if you have any questions to ask, or better still, if you have any comments to make. You may know that our strategic plan runs out at the end of this year. And one of the things that COVID took from us is the ability to have a traditional strategic planning process where we divide up into groups, and groups of 10 and 12 and 15 people meet and take on different parts of the project and come back and report into larger groups. And we have face-to-face town hall meetings, and we end up with a strategic plan. So I decided what we would do instead is try to come up with what I'm calling a bridge strategic plan. This, however, won't be a bridge to nowhere. This will be a bridge to somewhere. We will put together a plan which will guide us for the next year or so, something that hopefully we can have to start with in January of next year. And then we'll use it as a foundation to build a longer term strategic plan post COVID-19 when we're able to engage in a more traditional strategic planning process. I also am layering on the additional layer of asking the open task force, our task force of students, faculty, and staff who are focusing particularly on issues of equity and inclusion to serve as kind of arbiters of this strategic plan, if you will, and asking them to look at it through the lens of equity and inclusion. It's been sent out to you in advance of this visit tonight, the graphic that we have the 5 goals and the center goal, and then all of the objectives. I hope you were able to receive that and look at it in advance if you felt led to do so. That's already been vetted by the executive committee. It's already been vetted by the open task force, and now I'm beginning the process of vetting it by all of you. I want you to know that I consider it very much to be a draft and a work in progress. We've already made some fairly significant revisions to it based on the feedback that we've received. We'll make more revisions as time goes on. You may remember last year when I decided that we needed a strategic recruitment plan. And I tried a new process and it worked really well. And so that's what we're doing again. We brought an advanced draft of a plan to the body of WVU Parkersburg that had been put together by all of the constituent feedback that we had received since the time I've been here. And then we asked people to give comments and feedback to it. And we made really significant revisions based on the richness of that process and ended up with something that has proven that it can work. Enrollment was level this semester, and very few colleges and universities in the country can say that. And new student enrollment, which is particularly what's measured by the recruitment plan, is up considerably this semester. And though it's too soon to say what it will be for spring, I'll go ahead and tell you that it's trending up as far as new students go, significantly for spring as well. I think it's all the proof that we need. The strategic recruitment plan is working and will work even better when all of the tools of normal recruiting are given back to us by COVID-19. So I decided we would try a similar process for the strategic plan. And we will hope that we can have it move through a sufficiently shared governance to bring it to the Board of Governors at their January meeting and get it approved as a bridge plan that we'll live by until we get the new one built in a more traditional, constituent, engaging process. Something else that's going to happen next year is I'm going to invite, in fact, I may even do a little more than invite, every division and every department of the college to come up with their own individual strategic plan, which flows out of the college's comprehensive plan and really takes the implementation of it and the imagining of it to the most granular local level of the college, where I would argue most of the good work of the college takes place. So anyway, this is the beginning of a conversation. It's not the end. And I judge this to be a fairly reticent moment in the history of the world. Everybody's very battered right now, and there's no reason to pretend that that's not true. We all just feel like we've had the wind taken out of our sails because we were riding on such a high at WVUP before this happened. And hard as we've tried to sustain all of that, and as much as I believe we will rebound back to it again, this is a low point, not only for us as a community, but a low point for the country as a whole. So much suffering. How could it not be? So folks aren't as chatty, I guess is what I'm getting to, as we might be sometimes. If we were in a room together, I have no doubt that there would be a lot of comments, a lot of great feedback and questions. I had about 40 people with me when we did this yesterday, and there was some feedback, and it was very good. And rich, and we'll take it. And here's some of the feedback that I've received so far, yesterday and before. I think the common message that I hear coming through more than anything else is the importance of telling our stories. And I got to tell you, there's nothing that you could be saying to me that I would rather hear, because I might not be good at all that much, but I am pretty good at telling a story. And there's nothing that I enjoy more than that. And there are so many good stories to tell. And the fact that you think we need to do even more of that is encouraging to me. If you participated in any of the National Institutes for Historically Underserved Students, you saw the realization of what I already knew, and you probably as well, that the best storytellers that we have are our students. Nobody tells their stories better than they do. They really distinguish themselves, WVUP students and the other community college students of West Virginia, in a conversation that was facilitated by one of our own students, Sarah Weeks. participated in by several of our students as well. And if you have a chance, go back and watch that video. Cleverer people than I have made it available for you to watch in a recording. And if you ever doubted that we had a lot of good stories to tell and a lot of good student storytellers, go back and look at that. I'm also hearing that we need to market ourselves even more heavily as a destination college, and that pleases me. And you may know that I have the students in our business programs led by their faculty doing a feasibility study on the possibility of adding some student housing in the coming years. And I don't know yet where that conversation is going to go, but it does go hand in hand, the having of it, with the idea that we need to think of ourselves more as a destination college. I've heard a good bit of feedback about the importance of being sure that our programs are truly tied to the workforce needs of the people who hire our students. And that's very important. And we have a large grant pending before the U.S. Department of Labor right now. If we're able to receive that, we'll be the lead for the state of West Virginia, and that'll facilitate a process. That's what that grant's about, is bringing the employers into the process of helping us to develop and evaluate and measure our curriculum. So anyway, we have 5 major goals for the Bridge Strategic Plan draft in no particular order. You can see that the arrows move back and forth in every direction, implying that one is no more important than the other. Branding, which is the telling of our stories. We're doing that in billboards, we're doing that on TV, the radio, on social media. Dr. Jackson just told me before this started that our social media is up 49% or something like that, just in a 1-month period. So branding is going well, largely because we're including the student voice in that. And so that's working well. Program quality is another measure, and had a suggestion last night that we ought to call it educational program quality, since education is the centerpiece of everything that we're doing. And third area is workforce culture. You can't serve students unless you're really happy about coming to work every day and feel like you're working in a place that cares about you. The fourth area is community engagement, which I think rather speaks for itself. And then there's recruitment. And recruitment, since we're a tuition-driven, open access institution, is very, very important. You may say, where are all the other important things? The idea is that they will flesh out in the objectives, which were also sent to you in draft form. And that everything that's important will fit underneath one of these goals and into some of these objectives. So now, Dr. Jackson, I think I'm going to fall quiet, and I'm going to see if there are any questions or any comments. And I'm going to step away just for 1 second to see if I can shut down a poodle conversation. And by the time you're ready to prompt me, I'll be back, okay?
Well, the poodle conversation stopped as soon as he left.
They have promised to try to behave a little bit better. Are there any comments or any questions
Yes.
so far, Dr. Jackson?
We have about 21 who are watching at the moment, and we do have a question. Is the mission statement of the college going to change?
That's a great question. I had some people talk to me about that during some private feedback that they gave me before. I think it'd be fair to say the intent of the mission statement may not change that much, but it's open for argument, and it definitely needs to be revisited and updated. We're going to turn 60 next year, and the mission needs to be something that evolves with the college. So the language in which it's presented is fair game. And even the elements within the mission statement are fair game. I think that it is generally reflective of a lot of the goals of the new strategic plan, but I don't doubt that it can be improved upon. So it's very much on the table for discussion.
Okay, and just a couple other questions to see if people are going to post more. You talked about the possibility of just letting people know a little bit more about some of the bachelor's degrees we have, and the graduates of other community colleges enrolling in those programs is one of the objectives of the recruitment goal. And we do have programs like supervisory management that is really trying to go down that route. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, and I'm glad that question came up because I think I noticed that that's a question that got asked yesterday that I didn't ever get around to addressing. It goes back to the idea of I want us to be both a community college and a university. I'll be honest, there were several things that really drew me to WVU Parkersburg when I came. And one of the major things that drew me, one of the things that I thought had the potential to be our greatest competitive advantage, is we're the only institution in West Virginia, and one of not that many in the country, that is both a community college and a bachelor's granting university at the same time. And while I don't ever want us to forsake our community college mission, is something that we're very proud of. Where I think we really have the opportunity to expand and grow is with our bachelor's degrees. We take teaching excellence and the support of our students from staff, I think, to a whole new level here. We have a familial environment that you don't often find at large universities. And I think there are community college students in West Virginia and elsewhere that would like to continue paying community college prices, and they'd like to continue having the closer attention that they get at a community college. And I think that we can bring some of those into our computer information technology programs and other programs that we have that are so unique. But we're going to have somewhere to put these students if we are going to grow in this way, which is the reason that I have the feasibility study about housing going at the moment. So all of these things kind of play into and off of each other. So I don't want anybody to think that I have any intention of forsaking our mission as a community college, but I do have every intention. If I leave a legacy, if I'm allowed to live and serve that long, and I leave any kind of a legacy when I'm gone, I hope that it will be that we finish growing fully into the university that I think that we have the capacity to be, while respecting our history as a community college at the same time.
Okay, and you also mentioned that other groups would have a chance to provide feedback to this strategic plan because it's in draft version. So are those some groups like Faculty Senate and Staff Council?
Absolutely, all the normal suspects. It's already been reviewed by the executive committee. It'll end up with the Board of Governors, but before that, I'll be sharing drafts of it with Staff Council, Faculty Senate, the President's Cabinet, of course, the Student Government Association, all of the normal processes of shared governance. And there won't be a huge amount of time for feedback, and I'm going to beg your forgiveness on that if that's something you need to forgive me for, because I want us to have this in place early in 2021. But I think you will forgive me for that, because we only intend this to be a bridge to a process that then a longer term strategic plan will replace, that will have had the opportunity post COVID-19 to go through a more traditional process of being built and a longer process of being vetted. But I think you know that I have an open door, both literally and figuratively. And I'm happy to meet with you individually. I'm happy to meet with you in small groups as social distancing will allow. I'm receiving a lot of rich feedback in writing, and we all know that I love things in writing. And they can go in both directions. They don't always have to just be long emails coming from me. But after this second meeting today, I'll be spending a week or so making overhauls to the drafts that we have, and then I'll be sending them out through all the normal shared governance channels.
Okay, another question. You talk about a culture with transparent communication and one that has a caring, supportive workplace. Is that what you have found to be true in the years that you have been at WVUP, and how do you plan to continue to grow that?
I certainly found it to be a caring place when I came. That's one of the reasons that I came. One of the reasons that I knew that this was the place that I wanted to be. You know, I felt a sense of warmth and familial hospitality, and I've not been disappointed in that. since I got here. So, yes, I think that this is a caring place, and I have tried pretty much with every fiber of my being to do everything that I could to demonstrate to the community that I care very much about the community, that I didn't see this as just a stop off on the way to somewhere, quote unquote, bigger or better, that you chose me and I chose you. And so, yeah, I think that this is a caring place. And I think it's a transparent place. I think if communication ever falls short, that there's not a malicious intent to that. I think that sometimes we assume that people know things that they don't. And we shouldn't make those assumptions. So every place that I've ever been, this one included, starting with me, could probably be even more sharing of information than we are. But my spirit is a spirit of sharing. There's pretty much nothing that I know that I won't tell you if you ask. And when I can, I try to be proactive in sharing that as well. One of the things that I learned early in my life and that I pretty much model is I won't say anything about you that I wouldn't say to you. And I can't ask for much more than that. So I think we have robust, multi-level communication moving in many different ways. And I find it to be very transparent. Your vantage point, however, is different than mine, and frankly, more important. So, if any of you find it to be different than that, then I'd like to hear about it.
How will, how will progress updates regarding goals of the strategic plan be shared?
We'll have to build some rubrics for evaluating our progress. For the bridge plan, it'll probably be pretty simple rubrics, and then we'll probably try to build some that are a bit more advanced and far-reaching for the longer-term strategic plan. We'll engage someone to come and help us through the process from the outside when we try to do the longer-term strategic plan, because we already know what we think. And what we think is the most important, and those people will be working for us. But I think in any long-term strategic planning process, you need an unbiased external mirror in which you can look at yourself. And we'll bring some people in to help us with that. And we will ask everybody what they think the measures ought to be. And then based on the feedback that we receive, we'll build some rubrics to measure our progress.
Okay, will the Board of Governors have a role in the strategic plan?
The Board of Governors has a role in absolutely everything we do at WVU Parkersburg. I doubt there's a president anywhere, and whether you know it or not, I doubt there's a college community anywhere that's more richly blessed than WVU Parkersburg, with a Board of Governors that always shows up and that is always supportive of everything that we do. One recent example among many that I could cite of that is the fact that two members of the Board of Governors have been serving on our COVID-19 task force and have been very active in that. By law, the Board of Governors will need to approve our strategic plan before it becomes the strategic plan. But the Board of Governors, I believe, would tell you that I am a constant flow of information to them. I believe that they need to be meaningful abreast of everything that we do, and they are constantly flowing thoughts and opinions about the governance of the institution back to me. And as I'm sure you know, in addition to the governor's appointees, there's also a student, a staff, and a faculty appointee on the Board of Governors that all of you as constituent groups vote for. So there are many ways in which the Board of Governors is involved. The president of this institution works at the will and pleasure of the Board of Governors. So there's a check and balance on the authority of the president, and that is the Board of Governors.
Okay, there are no further questions at this time, but in a closing comment, could you just address why you chose not to do a 10-year plan?
Absolutely. I don't think anything about it, and this is just my opinion, but I'm going to tell it to you, and you can disagree. I don't think anything about a 10-year plan can truly be strategic in the world in which we live. If COVID-19 hasn't taught us but one thing, it's taught us that reality changes 3 times a day, and that's on a good day. Sometimes it changes more than that. A plan has to be long enough in order for it to be strategic. But if it's too long, then it's binding you to something that doesn't really encourage you to change. And I hope that we will be a dynamic and fluid institution that won't want to be the same or won't want to be governed by the same plan in 10 years that we're governed by now. So, granted, what we're trying to accomplish right this minute is something short term as a bridge, as I've said several times, but we will figure out the right amount of time to be strategic about the next plan. And I don't imagine it'll be more than 3 to 5 years because I think that we need to be more fluid and flexible than that. These are tough times in higher education. And we've been immune to a lot of that because a lot of good work that a lot of you did long before I got here. We're fiscally solvent. We have been, I think, well managed, and I would like to think that we're well managed now as well. So we don't have a lot of problems that a lot of other institutions do, but we're not immune to the changing demographics. We're not immune to the fact that the pool of students is shrinking in West Virginia and across the nation. And we're going to have more competition for fewer students, and we need to be flexible. So that is the reason that I didn't even consider a strategic plan as long as 10 years. And as I said, part of the beauty of our community is that we're not all compelled to feel the same about that. So if anyone wishes to take me to task about that, then I'm happy to listen.
Okay, well, thank you for your time on a Wednesday evening. We appreciate it. If you have further questions or comments about the strategic plan, please let us know. You can email the president's email account, or you can, you know, send a pigeon, whatever it takes at this time in this day, in this society. But honestly, always open to hear your comments. So thank you all for attending. We appreciate it.
Yeah, if you send a pigeon, I'll try to track it down, but we all know that I love email. So I'm interested to hear what everybody has to say. I'm just interested to hear it soon so that we could get this temporary plan wrapped up and have it ready for when we come back in January as soon thereafter as possible. I add my thanks to Dr. Jackson. There were a lot of things you could have done on Wednesday evening besides spend time with me. So thank you, and have a good evening with your families and loved ones. Good night.